Welcome to What's New with Summon and 360 Entoda Services. As Scott mentioned, I'm Brent Cook. I'm the product manager for Summon, and we have a lot to go over here today. Please be sure to ask any questions you might have. Make sure you post those in chat or the Q&A tool, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. We're going to start off, though, by reviewing some of the accomplishments from this year. And we'll take a look ahead at the December release and particularly do a little bit of talking about the Quick Links launch that you'll see as part of that release. Take a moment to touch on some updates we have to HTTPS support. Let's talk a little bit about the Summon roadmap and where that stands for 2022. Touch base on some upcoming webinars we have, discuss the new support center, and as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll take some time for your questions. So please be sure to send those out. First, I want to talk a little bit about recent Summon improvements. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the areas we like to highlight on our roadmap. If you look throughout the presentation, you'll see this sort of color coding for all of these areas that we like to make sure we're covering to ensure that Summon and the Citadel Discovery Index, or CDI, and all the tools that support it, support you in what you need to get done in your daily work and in what your patrons are doing in trying to find the materials to get the work done that they need to. So we focus in on things like search and exploring. That's really talking about relevance and the tools that we give to end users to refine that relevance. It's something we're always testing and improving. And while you may not see specific roadmap items on the list, it's something that we continually do. We get feedback from you, from the end users, from the system itself. We're always working on improving that. We're also working on making sure we have an open system. That's not only tying into various products that you can get from ProQuest, Xlibris, and innovative products, but also to systems external, making sure that things are as available as possible. We also like to focus in on the user experience, and I'll spend a lot of time today talking about the user experience because we've got some nice improvements coming out in the December release for the user interface. And that ties in closely to accessibility as well. All of the features and functionality that we have, we test for accessibility to make sure that they are as available as possible and easy to use as possible for all of your patrons. But that is an ongoing thing that we're always vigilant about and always working on improving. And then finally, in that last column there, you'll see things around library empowerment and consortium support. That's around making sure that we give you the tools, that we provide the tools that you need to be successful with all these systems at your fingertips. So as I mentioned, I want to take a little bit of time to highlight some of the things that we've released so far in 2021 for Summon. We started off with the February release and a focus on updating the API citation style to the 7th edition. Both 7th and 6th edition are now available. In May, we released a variety of features, some of which I'll do a little bit of a deep dive on. One of the things I want to highlight on this slide is you see the little NERS icon to the right of the separating print from ebooks facet and the Easy Proxy application to the DOI and the preview pane. Both of those are items that came out courtesy of the new enhancement request system, or NERS. It's part of Igloo or Eluna. I'll talk more about that later, but it's just suffice it to say for now, it's a great way for you in your institution to contribute directly to the Summon roadmap. We also did some improvements in August around better tag matching for best bets, and a few other things. Like I said, I'll do a deep dive into a couple of these here in just a moment. First, I want to talk a little bit about that facet, the two facets we've added to be able to separate both print from ebooks when searching. In the past, because of the way that the merged record was structured, we weren't able to separate out under content types, book and ebook as separate values. So what we've done is we've added facets in the revise your search area that help you or allow your user to focus in on purely electronic materials or on print materials. When we first released this, there were a couple of issues that needed to be resolved, and we have resolved all those outstanding issues. The particular with Summon over Alma, it was reverting back to off on each evening. That's been resolved. We've improved the process for how we identify electronic materials and print materials in faceted results. And then we've made an improvement around the facet itself. If you select both at the same time, you get some odd results. And so rather than doing that, we use we make it so you can only use one of these facets at the same time. If you want to achieve an include or an exclude using both formats, look under content type and you can use book or ebook to achieve that effect. If you haven't tried it out yet, what it takes a little bit of work to configure it. Basically, what you'll need to do is turn on the actual physical books backend processing in CDI. As we do the search index update, we basically will prepare your site so the facet will be ready for your institution's application of Summon. You need to go under Refine Your Search in the admin console, and then right here you'll see the physical books backend processing. Turn that to on, and then save that. And within 5 minutes, that configuration will take place. Once that's done, you'll need to wait for a search index to be completed. So that will be approximately a week. Once that's prepared, you can then view those facets and how they behave in either the preview or the production environment, whichever one you choose. Again, to get this started, you need to set it in production, turn that configuration on for physical book backend processing. And then once it's been completed, you can then turn those facets on. And you'll find those here under Refine Your Search, under Physical Books Filter Enabled, and eBooks Filter Enabled. And click Save. And those will show up in your preview environment if you'd like, or in production as well. And we've gotten a lot of good positive feedback around that. So please take some time to take a look at it if you haven't activated on your site already. We've also been working diligently on the CRVS Summon implementation. There's a variety of functionality that you'll get as part of that. I'll just go over a brief highlight today. As you can see from the example here on the screen, you'll be able to log in using CAS. SAML support is planned for the next phase. We are in the middle of roadmap planning, and I'll provide some more information on that toward the end of the webinar. But currently, it's login is supported using CAS. You can view availability and perform requests right from the results page, as you can see there in the example in the screen grab. You can also view a library account information page that allows you to view a variety of information, including messages, loans, requests, fines and fees. And you can also take certain actions, such as canceling a request that you might have on an item. If you want to know more about the CRVS Summon integration, what it is, how to enable it, things like that, we did do an in-depth webinar a couple of weeks ago. You can find that listed in all of our Summon webinar content. You'll find those in the emails. And of course, when we send this out, you'll see a pointer to that as well. But if you want to get a deep dive into that, I highly recommend that webinar. Susan John Smith from Pitt State University was kind enough to help out with that demo. Again, I think it went well, and you can get a lot more information there. In the August release, we also added the ability to have short URLs for citations. For those who may not be aware of it, in the past, we did have the, in our permalinks, we have a very long URL that has a variety of characters at the end of the URL. That information is actually very useful, because what that does is it stores enough information about the piece of content so that if your user comes back, if your patron comes back, and your source for that content has changed, Summon should still be able to resolve to the particular piece of content the person is looking for. So if you got that piece of content from provider A, and for some reason how you get that content has changed, and you now get that from provider B, the end user ultimately just wants that piece of content. And those longer URLs help with that, but it makes for a particularly ugly citation page. In fact, I've heard stories of people whose citation pages were longer than their article because of the length of those URLs. So now we have the ability to create a short URL as part of those citation styles. We had already had, we were using TinyURL, which is a third-party platform to generate those for permalink. Those permalinks, as well as the citations, will now use an Ex Libris link shortener. And the good news is all links will work moving forward. So if you use one of those longer encrypted URLs, that will continue to work. If you use TinyURL, as long as TinyURL exists as a service, that will work. And then the same with the Summon Ex Libris linking as well. So next I want to talk a little bit about the December quarterly release. Normally we do the last quarter release in November, at the beginning of November, but because we're making some user interface changes here, we wanted to put it toward the end of your quarter or semester. So hopefully December 15th hits that sweet spot. will be going live into production for everyone on that date. We are offering a longer preview environment this time around. We'll be launching, as I say here on this slide, beginning November 24th. However, it looks like we may be able to provide this a week earlier than that, so November 17th for the preview environment. And I just want to call that out. I'll send out some release notes and some instructions on how to access that once it is available. But hopefully that'll give you enough time to go through, review things, update any documentation you might have for it. As you can see here, there's a variety of great functionality in this release, and a lot of it came from the NERS enhancement process. And a lot of the pieces within the summer user interface refresh, we did user studies and user interactions to help us guide us through our process for making these changes. But we also pulled a lot from the Idea Exchange as well. And I'll update that when the release goes live for the changes that we made related to the Idea Exchange. So please remember to contribute to that. And also today for the Summon user interface refresh, I'm going to go ahead and advance the slides so we can talk. I'm going to give you a preview of what you'll see. Beginning of December, though, I'll do a follow-up webinar that's all about the new user experience. And in that webinar, I'll talk a little bit about some of the analysis, some of the user testing we did in order to make some of the decisions we did, and some of the feedback that you gave us and drove the development itself. And that'll also give you a couple of weeks to take a look at the user interface, play with it, and ask me any questions that you might have. So I'll present that information on how and when, how to sign up and when that webinar is at the end of the webinar, this webinar, excuse me. So what's coming as part of the Summon user interface refresh in December? We've got a variety of improvements on how we place items on the page so that the brief result is better organized and the usability of the functionality is much improved as well. We focused a lot on improving the facets and making sure that things were accessible as well. Again, this won't be a completely new user interface. A lot of things fall in the same places, and you'll just see it's an improvement, not necessarily a reinvention, but there are enough changes where you may need to update your training materials to match the new user interface. So I have this slide in here just to mention that what you see here today on the screen, it is a screen grab, so what you see in the browser may act or look a little bit different from what you see in the mockups. I am happy to report that just this morning I was playing around in our test environment with the user interface, and so I can confirm that with major browsers and interfaces, what you see today for the screen grabs will look a lot like what you see in the end piece. But right now, again, due to variations in how browsers and operating systems interpret web pages, it may look a little bit different than what I show you today. So when we did the Summon user interface refresh, here are the various things that we were focusing in on. Area 1 there is pointing to some of the sort of stylistic improvements that we've done to make it look a little more modern. You can see how the individual results look like individual tiles now and have a little bit more of a 3D effect there and rounded edges. The second area that we looked into was improving the overall facet interactions, and I'll do a deep dive into that, including rounding up facet counts on the display. You can still see the total count when you go to the results, but to make things cleaner and easier to interact with, we've made some improvements there. We're also improving how you link to PDF or full text via the brief results, and I'll show you a mock-up of how that's going to look. We've improved, if you look at area 4 there, the icons that are in the brief results. And then finally, if you see there under number 5, we've improved how we organize all the glanceable indicators on a single record so that hopefully it'll be easier to see the information that you want or need out of these individual results. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the facet improvements. We improved the implementation of the exclude functionality. We've made it so that all the facet values are now available in the facet pane. If you look there on the right-hand side, you can see this is what it looks like today. This is our current facet pane. And in testing, we would ask users to exclude a particular content type, for example, or exclude a particular discipline. And we would pick one that was not on that original pane. You have to click on the More link in order to find it. And so when you click on that More link, you end up with it looking like this. Again, you've got the grayed out left-hand side there with the primary facet pane. And on the right-hand side, you have all of these various values. You can click on a check mark to include or an X to exclude, and then you have to go up to the top and hit the apply button. And so nice functionality that users wanted and that you certainly have asked for, but the way that it was implemented, it's more challenging than a lot of folks could find. Like finding the value was difficult, and then the actions to go through that were a little bit more difficult. So what you're going to see here, I think, is a much better improvement over how those interactions work. This you can now see is the improved facet pane that you'll see. We've done a few things, like this was on the ID Exchange, and that's something that I've heard a lot of feedback around. The add results beyond your library's collection currently appears underneath the search box, and because it's in a separate area, a lot of people miss it. So we're moving this over to be included in the refine your search area at the top of the facet pane. We've also improved the way that you can interact with publication dates. We have some canned time frames that you can click on there and facet down to just that time frame. Or you can click on that pencil icon there at the right to actually get the expose the slider or the date picker and specify specific dates there. You can also see that all of the functionality that you're used to, the ability to choose the order of the facets, have them start off expanded or collapsed, is still there. And you'll see here, now there's no longer the more pane to expose all the various values for a facet. So now what happens is, if there's more than 4 or 5 items, we'll load those first few, and then as the user uses that scroll bar on the right-hand side, that will populate that list that they can go through and select whatever they'd like. They can include by checking the box on the right, or excuse me, on the left, or they can exclude by clicking on the exclude button there on the left. If you want to find something in a particularly long list, you will have that scroll bar that you can use, and you'll be able to do a filter. So if you start to type in that search there at the top of that facet, it will quickly resolve down to only values that include the characters you're typing. And then again, you can scroll to see the entire list if you'd like to navigate things that way as well. We've also worked on better organizing the information for the brief result. It's been about 5 or 6 years since we did our last major user interface refresh, and it's kind of a testament to the amount of functionality that we've built over that time with how many things have been added to that result. If you look at the top before image, you can see there we've added the original research indicator at the top and the number of pages. Underneath the thumbnail, you've got the peer-reviewed and open access icon. We added all the links at the bottom for preview direct link to PDF for unpaywall and citation trail there. We've got the Web of Science pieces over there. We've got the toolbar. So there's a lot of information there, and about half of that's been added since the last time we did a user interface refresh. So now we're trying to take a little bit of time and improve upon it and organize a little bit better. First off, we're changing the coloring and some of the iconography here for the toolbar so that it's easier to see, more accessible. And also, in particular, we had in usability tests, we would ask people to put things in their saved items folder, and the little folder icon with a plus didn't catch anyone's eye. They weren't really able to find that. However, this bookmark icon that you see here, that's something that browsers have been doing a lot of user training to get them to expect that for saving later, and other applications. And so that tested well, so we're going to try that out as the icon there. We also took a lot of these attributes to the record, and we put that in one spot so you can, at a glance, see everything you'd like to see here. So there's an online indicator, peer-reviewed is now an icon that you can see over there. Open access is on the right-hand side. You also see things like the original research or the page counts or things like that will all show up in that one area, so that rather than being sprinkled around throughout the result, you can see it in one spot. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the linking that you'll see in the improved user interface. And there are a few different things that are coming together here as part of this release. And one is this NERS feature that we are developing, which is the ability to display all links and results. So if you want to just have it the way that it is today and display the links the way it is, you'll be able to continue that. But you'll also be able to choose a setting to display every link that's available for a piece of content. So how we're going to display that is rather than a simple text link, you'll have a button like you see here on the left-hand side with PDF or full text online. Those will go directly to the content if those are available. If there's more than one piece of content available, as you can see here on the right-hand side, you can click on the right part of the button and expose more than one option and see the availability information there in order to select those items or those links. Here's an example for what you'll see around books. On the left-hand side there, you can see one of the buttons that has more than one option. You can click on the left-hand side and go directly to the full text, or click on the right-hand side and expose various options that you have out there. And I should note that the labels for these buttons are customizable. So if you don't like what you see here for what's being used for the text, you can always put in something that you'd like to see. So that's the highlights for all of the user interface changes. There's some great functionality being built in as well. Again, this is one of the things that came out of the NERS voting for last year, improving how we do corrected spelling. We're modifying the way that it behaves so that it meets user expectations. The way that it works currently is that if you make a typo like I did here, typing in biology and dropping that second O, we set it so that you will automatically search on the way you typed it. So you'll search on the typo and you'll get a recommendation of, did you mean biology? And then you can click on that link and execute a second search on the corrected spelling. Most search engines or even browser interfaces and things like that, if they see what appears to be an obvious spelling error, the system will automatically search on the corrected spelling and then give them the option to opt out of that. So here's how we do it with a link that you'd execute to execute a search on the correct spelling. What we're suggesting, or what you'll see as part of the December release, is a switch so that we automatically search for the spelling suggested there, and you have the ability to search on the originally typed word, because even though we have a variety of dictionaries and we do our best to work between variations within spelling that are approved within dictionaries and whatnot, there's always things like product names or fictional characters or other reasons why people deliberately misspell things, and you might want to have that type of search. So you just click on that link there and that would execute the search as you originally typed it. Another improvement that came as, out of the Database Recommender and Topic Explorer focus group from last year is better tools for managing Database Recommender. When Database Recommender was first built years ago, there were only a few hundred databases, and the interface we have in the admin console was enough to manage that list. We now have thousands of databases available for recommendation, and that's no longer manageable. So we've created a bulk management tool. You'll be able to export your current settings for Database Recommender in a file you can open up in your favorite spreadsheet, comma separated value or CSV file. You'll then be able to go in there and either activate or deactivate resources for use in Database Recommender. You'll be able to add or edit tags, and then you'll be able to upload that back to the system. And if there's any errors, it will report out on that, and it will make the updates as well. We're also adding in the ability for you to prioritize recommendations so that if you don't do anything, they will continue to be recommended as they are today. But if you go in and set a priority for something, then if there is a tie or if there are multiple databases that could be displayed, the ones with priority will be displayed first. Another great feature that came out as part of the NERS voting last year was the ability to search on a variety of additional fields, and particularly to be able to do exact searches on those. You will be able to do exact searches in the standard search box, but to make sure that this is visible and easy for folks to find and use, it'll also be available on the advanced search page, and you'll be able to select exact match on a variety of fields. And there's some examples here. Here are all the ones that we plan to add as part of it. So call number, ISBN, DOI, OCLC number, a variety of identifiers, PMID. All of these will be ones that you can turn these on or off. So if you don't want all of these to show up on your advanced search page, you can certainly make sure that they don't show up. But if you would like for them to show up, you can. One thing to note is that currently you have the ability to select all and search all fields at once. That will not be listed as an option. You'll have so many options there that that one will no longer be there. You can achieve that effect by going through and selecting each field individually, but if a user does do a select all, or does search on all these fields at once, it may impact performance a little bit and slow down the response time on that search. Next, I want to talk a little bit about Quick Links, a new program that we have that's really about making sure the user gets to that full text as quickly as they possibly can. This is built as part of CDI, so it's available for both Primo and Summon. For Summon, it's going to look like this. Those buttons that I just showed you, you'll click on the PDF button, and that should take you directly to either the full text in HTML or to a PDF. So again, the idea is we're working with a specific list of providers, and we're working to expand that list of providers, and we're working with them to guarantee that there is a viable PDF or HTML link that will take the user directly there. That way the user gets exactly what they're looking for with one click. It's created centrally, so there's no need for a link resolver. Those links just go straight to the content. And again, we're starting off with a small group of selected providers, and we're going to expand that list over time. So when these quick links appear, you will need to turn it on in your environment. If you have it on, if there's enough metadata, including things like a DOI or a PQID to support reliable links, it needs to have that. So we basically need to be able to use that unique identifier to connect it to the link. You also need to have full text rights for the record. So it's assuming that one of the providers that supports quick links is one that you have the rights to. And again, it can appear for a variety of different material types. Primarily what you'll see this for is articles, books, and book chapters. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, this is configurable for you. Once this is in preview and then production, you'll be able to go into the Summon admin console. You'll find the control under settings and search results, and it's right there, display PDF quick links and display HTML quick links. And again, the text is displayed on the link itself, and you'll be able to determine. So that brings us to the end of the December release and a lot of the highlights that you have there. Like I said, you'll get to see that shortly in the preview environment. I do want to take some time now, though, to highlight something that's happening in December as well, and that is we are moving to requiring HTTPS for all Summon sites. And this is all about security and reliability. In the past, we have a configuration in the back end where you could opt to turn on HTTPS support. We are going to move to that being required for all sites. In order to make the entire system secure for everyone, this is the way to go. A majority of websites are already on HTTPS, and actually the majority of you have already turned on this redirect to HTTPS. So for the most of you, this won't be a change whatsoever. If you have any existing bookmarks or search widgets or any other links that start with HTTP, the user will be redirected to HTTPS automatically. And again, if you've got this turned on already, there will be no change here. However, if you happen to be one of the few sites that do not currently redirect to HTTPS, on December 15th, we will start to redirect automatically for you. And if there's any elements on the page that are not secure, your end users may get a security warning in their browser. So what does that mean? The things that you need to check for in HTTP support is anything that isn't coming from Summon itself that you may have put on the page. So in this screen grab right here, you can see the library opening hours. There's a best bet there. We've got the custom panels on the right-hand side. All of these are text, which mean that they would be safe. But if I was to pull in an image, or if I was to use some script that was hosted on a site that's not within the Ex Libris cloud, those links need to have HTTPS in front of them. Otherwise, you may get a not secure error message in your browser. But again, a lot of browsers are already doing this, and if you have a site that doesn't have HTTP as set for it, you're going to get an error message or a warning anyway that it's going across a non-secure connection. So how can you check to see if your site is already configured for HTTPS support? So go into your Summon admin console, and it's under the general tab there, the first one that you get, that you land on when you go into the admin console. And there is the third item there, the ability to force HTTPS via redirect, and that should be on. If you have that turned on in production, there will be no change on December 15th. If you don't have that turned on in your production environment, I would recommend that you go to your preview environment right now. And you can do that today, or you can wait until we have the new release there, but it is available currently. You just go turn on the force redirect for HTTPS in the preview environment, and you can check your scripts, you can check your best bets, you can check your images you might link to, and see if that's going to trigger any type of security warning in the browsers. But again, for the most people and most sites, this will just be mean better security overall for the system for you and other tenants. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap for 2022. We're still in the planning stages for the roadmap. So my recommendation to you is to continue to contribute to the Idea Exchange. I've had several people actually ping me in the last week or two to ask about contributions to the Idea Exchange and feedback on some of the ideas they had. I encourage you to post those out there. I continually look at them. We've already pulled the one for NERSC voting for this year because the voting is in process right now. But I am looking at the Idea Exchange at what else we might include. So please keep contributing to that. As I just mentioned, the NERSC voting is active right now through November 18th, which is about a week and a day from today. So please take the time to vote if you are an Eluna or Igloo member. And then a few things that we plan to continue in 2022 that started in 2021 is that CRVS Summon integration. As I mentioned before, we plan to expand based on feedback we're getting currently from our early adopters and soon from that first wave of folks who activate this in their instance of Summon. But we also want to add SAML support and a variety of things there. So that leads also to some authentication improvements. We are taking a look at how we can improve single sign-on. And that will start with CRVS Summon, but will expand to systems beyond that, and also user experience improvements. When we were doing the design work on the improvements for December, we actually took a look at the site as a whole, and we've identified some other areas we'd like to make some changes to. However, we want to reserve those till next summer or during a slower time during the year to make those kind of improvements. And that's looking at things like the preview pane, and advanced search page, and the catalog detail page, things like that. I'll show details on all those in upcoming webinars. We will have a roadmap and what's new webinar coming up shortly. So keep your eyes open for that. And to support that, I want to take a moment to just do a plug for Igloo and Eluna. These are your groups. These are the Ex Libris user groups, both the international group and the North America group. The people who participate in these activities in these organizations have a great spot to be able to learn and contribute and really help make Summon the great thing that it is today. So I just pulled this from the listserv post. If you don't happen to see, if you need to refer to that, you can. But basically, the Summon and 360 working group is looking for 2 new members. One of the benefits is that you get to meet with me once a month while we talk about and review some of this functionality. If there's feedback needed or requirements that we want to talk about, this is one of the first places that I'll take it to, because it is a standing monthly meeting where I have interaction with a variety of members. And the great thing about the Igloo and Eluna working group is that it does contain a range of types of institutions. And so we'd love to have you join that as well. The specific roles that they're looking for is a communications coordinator and an education and training coordinator. Again, there's an email that was posted to the listserv, which, by the way, is also run by Eluna and Igloo. So thank you for doing that. We'd love to see you participate, and I'd love to have you on those monthly meetings. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some upcoming webinars and ways that you can be engaged with the community. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, that new Summit Experience Q&A, a time for you to talk to me and about the user interface. I'll go over some of the research that we did, some of the testing that we did, and some of the decision-making processes that we went through to help inform our decisions. I'll respond to any feedback you have given, since you'll probably have about at least a week to take a look at the user interface by that point. So get your feedback, respond to that, and answer any questions you may have at the time. Other sessions you might be interested in, there's a Summon Custom Panels and Integration learning session on December 2nd. I highly recommend that. There's our content quarterly webinar. It's going to be a focus on we put the operations into content operations and talking about knowledge bases. Last thing I want to just take a couple of moments to talk about is the new support center. So that went live just over this past weekend. We have been getting feedback from you, and the team is working on making improvements or corrections based off of the feedback we've had so far. We expect a lot of those changes to be in place over this next weekend. You can go here and find a variety of information. You can access it at the URL support.proquest.com. You can search for answers to help you out. You can log in to review your cases and see where things stand. You can easily submit a case with the submit a case link there in the center of the screen. And you can also find a variety of articles and other support materials by product. So what do you get with this new support center? It combines ProQuest and Ex Libris support, so you can go to a single portal to get all your support needs. If you go to one of our old support URLs, if you go to the Ex Libris support URL, you will be redirected from the old URL to the new one as of this past Monday. You'll be able to go in there and create your own customized case lists, so you'll be able to track things a little bit better. You'll be able to go in and see clear case statuses, so you know exactly what is waiting for your input. There's collaborative knowledge sharing through groups. And then again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of various knowledge articles or previous cases that you can search through, or you can submit one if you find that's appropriate. So if you want more information on the support center, there is a knowledge article out there. We'll make this URL and the PowerPoint available after the webinar, so you don't have to write down that nice long URL right now. You can go there and take a look, learn a little bit more about it. If for some reason you're having issues accessing the support center or having other problems, or if you just want to contact us with questions or comments, you feel free to use the email addresses there at the bottom, proquest-support@proquest.com or exlibris-support@exlibrisgroup.com. So both of those are emails you can do to reach out to either report any issues or even to file a case if for some reason you're having issues trying to get in, and do that via the new support center. And that brings me to the end of our prepared slides. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to attend today's webinar. Hopefully this will get you a little excited about what you're going to see with the new user interface. I know I'm excited about it, and when I've been interacting with it, I think you're going to be happy with the way that facet pane works. Again, I will send out a notification as soon as the environment is available. I expect that we will have it next week, definitely by the 24th at the latest. But I will send out notification with instructions on what's in it and how to access it. So thank you so much for your time and effort today.